A doctor who helped catch Lucy Letby and bring her to justice has told ITV News that hospital bosses took 2 years to alert the police, despite consultants repeatedly raising concerns. Speaking exclusively to our UK editor, Paul Brand, Dr Ravi Jayaram said managers forced him to apologise to the nurse after he told them he suspected she was killing babies.
When babies started dying on Lucy Letby's ward, her colleagues never expected to catch a killer. But having saved countless lives in his career, Dr Ravi Jayaram potentially spared many more by stopping her.
What was it like when babies started dying and you couldn't understand why?
I've been a paediatrician since 1992 and I had never in my career seen anything like this. And actually initially there was a feeling of thank goodness Lucy was on, because she's really good in a crisis, she's really good at managing these things. But as time progressed, the thoughts started springing into our heads. Could she be doing something deliberately?
So the thought starts sinking in that there could be a killer on the unit. I mean, that's a big moment.
It's a big moment, and it's a chilling moment. I don't think anybody has a rule book for how you deal with a situation where you're suspecting that somebody's causing deliberate harm to babies on your neonatal unit.
In June 2015, after 3 babies died and another collapsed, doctors met with their managers and noted Lucy Letby's presence. 2 more babies would die later that year, another 4 collapsed, and by early 2016 there had been 3 internal reviews, but none of them came up with an answer. Until something happened which made Dr Jayaram even more certain of his own theory.
Tell me about the night when you walked in on Lucy Letby standing over the cot of baby K.
That is a night that is etched on my memory and will be in my nightmares forever, to be honest. I was sitting at the desk just outside the room writing notes, and the nurse looking after the baby said she was popping to the delivery suite to go and talk to the parents, and she said, I've left Lucy in there babysitting. Part of me was saying, you better go in and just check everything's okay, because you know what's happened before when Lucy's been on duty. As I walked towards the incubator, I could see on the monitors that the oxygen saturations, which is basically the baby's oxygen levels, were dropping. And they dropped to a level that ordinarily, number one, the alarms would have been going off. But number 2, the nurse would have called for help. And Lucy Letby was standing by the top of the incubator. She didn't have her hands in the incubator.
What was she doing then?
Well, she was just standing there. Now, tubes become dislodged, but this was a 25-week gestation baby who wasn't kicking around, who wasn't vigorous. The only possibility was that that tube had to have been dislodged deliberately.
The jury didn't reach a verdict in relation to that baby, but 2 more almost died shortly afterwards. Yet the next month, managers told doctors there was no evidence Lucy Letby was causing any harm. She was moved from night to day shifts, but when 2 more babies died and another 2 collapsed in June, this time consultants demanded a meeting with the hospital board, including the then medical director Ian Harvey and then chief executive Tony Chambers, to raise their concerns.
The very first thing that Tony Chambers, the chief executive, said to us, he cogitated for a few seconds and he said, well, I can see how that might be a very convenient explanation for things. And what that says to me is that he'd already decided that wasn't going on and this was us just trying to cover up.
He was trying to blame you, in other words?
I think so. He didn't say it explicitly then. We discussed having CCTV put onto the unit. We discussed her being supervised one-to-one with somebody watching her all the time. And then we heard that Lucy Letby had been moved to the Risk and Governance Department, so she'd been taken off the unit.
Suddenly, babies stopped collapsing, and the hospital asked the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health to conduct a review of the deaths. In redacted paragraphs we've seen, its report concluded that Lucy Letby was an enthusiastic, capable and committed nurse, that there was nothing about her background that was suspicious, and that concerned doctors had been going with gut feeling. Those doctors were summoned to another meeting with executives who now accused them.
We'd bullied her, we'd behaved unprofessionally, we'd behaved in ways that were unbecoming to the profession, and then read out a letter from her, which was a very aggressive letter from her, basically saying, I'm coming back to work and you have to work with me, and I'm going to prove to you that I'm a great nurse and I'm not a killer like you say. And then Tony Chambers finished off by saying, so she's coming back to work, and this is the most chilling thing. I'm drawing a line under this, you will draw a line under this, and if you cross that line there will be consequences for you.
You were asked in court, why didn't you just phone the police if you had concerns? But here is the chief executive of the hospital, your boss, saying if you take any further action there will be consequences for you. You have to draw a line under it. I mean, that must be an impossible position for you to be in.
It's an utterly impossible and a Kafkaesque situation to be in. As well, we were told when we initially raised concerns that if we call the police there'll be blue and white tape everywhere, that's the end of the unit. It would be really bad for the reputation of the trust.
In fact, it was the killer who was about to turn complainant. Lucy Letby took out a grievance, with doctors forced to write this apology to her.
Dear Lucy, we would like to apologise for any inappropriate comments that may have been made during this difficult period. We are very sorry for the stress and upset that you have experienced in the last year. Please be reassured that patient safety has been our absolute priority during this difficult time.
Meanwhile, doctors continued to raise concerns, but Ian Harvey replied that there was no smoking gun and Lucy Letby would be returning to the ward, just as soon as Dr. Jayaram had said sorry to her face.
It must have been an absolutely surreal experience to be sat across the table in that mediation session from somebody who at this point you're quite sure could well be a killer.
Yes, it was bizarre, and of course to listen to her saying, I'm coming back next week, will you work with me? And of course I was having to say, well, if the trust have deemed that you're coming back to work, I will work with you. Yes, but will you be happy to work with me? I will work with you if you're on shift. Because no, I wasn't happy.
She was just 6 days away from returning to the ward before management finally allowed doctors to meet with the police, after yet another review failed to explain all of the deaths.
The very fact that the police, after listening to us for less than 10 minutes, realised that this is something that they had to be involved with, to me speaks volumes. And I could have punched the air.
Do you think the lives of some of those babies could have been saved if management had taken action sooner?
It's a horrible thing to say, but I do genuinely believe that there are 4 or 5 babies who could be going to school now who aren't.
Paul, these are extraordinary accusations. What's been the response from the managers at the time?
Yeah, it's horrifying enough, Lucrezia, that Lucy Letby has become Britain's worst ever serial child killer tonight. But what's even more chilling for the parents of the babies that she killed, those that she tried to kill, and many more potentially that she may yet be found to have harmed, is that she could have been stopped sooner. Dr. Jayaram was just one of 7 consultants who were raising these concerns. We've had a response from 2 of the executives I named in my report tonight. They deny the accusations. Ian Harvey, for example, who was the medical director at the time, says, I was determined to keep the baby unit safe and support our staff. I wanted the reviews and investigations carried out. Tony Chambers, who was the chief executive, says the trial and the lengthy police investigation have shown the complex nature of the issues raised. I'll cooperate fully and openly with any post-trial inquiry. An inquiry is what everybody wants, the doctors, the former executives and the government, so we're going to get it. And I suspect one of the key questions in that inquiry will be, why were doctors, experts in child health, not listened to when their expertise pointed towards the actions of a mass murderer on their very own ward?